Today we look at Sav and Anya, why Sav didn't protect Anya from her parents. We also take a look at Emma and Manny's relationship. And we also look at the one man who could have stopped everything in his tracks in the Rick Murray situation. The administrator, if you will. Find out how these things could have been all different. This is Cutters, Degrassi, Whatifs. Yes, it's a brand new series. It's called Cutters, Degrassi, Whatifs. And this basically draws inspiration from someone's What If post on Reddit. I don't know the name. I didn't really get the name, so whoever you are, thank you. So I've been doing series such as Whatever It Takes, deconstructing the Rick Murray storyline. I've also been talking about the seasons in review. I've also talked about Cutters on Degrassi Unpopular Opinions, and I've also talked about some topic videos. But I decided to do what ifs. Each episode will have 3 what ifs. So basically, I'm going to explain each one in detail, and then basically the second one, basically go through the situation as it was in the Degrassi canon and see what if it happened. What would have happened if things were different. So the first one I've done, and I randomly selected it, is Sav and Anya. Now, Sav and Anya, I know it sounds kind of awkward saying it, but anyway, Sav and Anya were a decent pairing in the Degrassi universe. The only thing holding Sav and Anya back mostly was basically the parents' Muslim beliefs and the arranged marriage stuff. The Bandaris actually were from a culture that basically arranged marriages were the norm and all that. And obviously Sav would get an arranged marriage. Despite Sav kind of saying that, he doesn't feel that he needs an arranged marriage. His parents are very consistent and persistent, if you will. So what you got here is basically the fact that Sav and Anya really felt for Sav and all that. Anya's character was not really played great and all that. Anya, unfortunately, for most of season 8 and 9, was mostly known as being Holly J's lapdog, if you will. Basically, that Anya refused to stand up for herself, and Holly J took advantage of her. And Holly J basically made Anya not really her slave, but her lapdog, as I said. And Anya was happy being with Sav. Sav introduces Anya to his parents, and Anya says that I'll do whatever it takes to be Muslim. I'll even read the Quran. I'll do whatever it takes. And they basically say that it doesn't matter. Sav's got honor to behold. Of course, we didn't know it was an arranged marriage until we find out in season 10. Or is it 11? 9 or 10, I can't remember. But anyway, Anya was upset that basically Sav doesn't stand up for her in front of his parents, basically letting his parents walk all over him, all that. But Sav says that he would still be with Anya, whatever it takes. Unfortunately, though, Sav basically pushed Anya aside for his arranged marriage and all that. And Anya, of course, was ticked off that Sav would do such a thing and basically put himself in a tight spot. Anya, unfortunately, would not go on to do much better, if you will, after Sav. She tries to date, she dates Owen. I believe she also has a relationship with Riley. But of course, Riley's hiding the fact that he's gay. And of course, she deals with her mother's podiatrist, Dr. Chris. And basically, she was so crestfallen for love that she wanted to be with a doctor and all that. And she lied about her age and all that. It just seemed terrible. Now, one good thing about Sav and Anya's relationship, before Sav basically went for his arranged marriage and such, was basically that Holly J asked Anya to try to foil Sav's plans for student council president. And so basically, Anya decided to do it. However, Anya said that she was pregnant and all that with Sav's kid. Now, Anya and Sav did realize that basically this would not fly. And so they basically come up with a plan. And they decide to turn it around on Holly J and say that they miscarried. And that meant Sav got all the sympathy he needed. And Sav wins the election and all that. And I believe that's when Anya finally stood up to Holly J, basically saying that, why do you push me around so often? And Holly J goes, because you let me. Yeah. Holly J, of course, got her justice arcs and got a redemption arc, if you will. So, basically, that's it. But the what if. Here we go. The what if. What if Sav actually stood up to his parents about Anya? Well, let's just say this. The Bandaris were basically from the old school philosophy of their religion and all that. They're from like India or some other Muslim country and all that. I feel like Bandari is Indian, but anyway, so basically the Bandaris were basically old school, and they basically wanted their kids to learn the culture and all that. Unfortunately, that culture actually was terrible because it made Ali work her fingers to the bone, whereas Sav basically didn't have to do much around the house. Basically, the girl has to do the housework, and the guys don't, and all that. That culminated in Ali running away, and basically Sav standing up for Ali and telling his parents these things, and then basically Sav's dad breaking down, saying that you don't know what it's like to have kids and all that. But the good news about that is that the Bandaris actually got better. I mean, the mother didn't really get that much better, but the father was actually much more sympathetic in a sense, and it all worked out. And Ali got a little bit more freedom, and Ali actually proved that she was a decent person after all. But regardless of that, basically, Sav could have received a lot of problems due to the philosophy of the Bandaris and the old culture. I mean, maybe the dad basically was under pressure to push the Muslim faith completely on his two kids. Because, I mean, like, when I think about it, I think Marco's dad basically was under the strict policy that if his son was gay, he would be ashamed of himself. He would actually be forsaken, if you will. That could have been what's wrong with Sav's dad. Maybe that's why he had to push the religion on him. Or Sav's mom, too. But, I mean, Sav and Anya would have had a great relationship and all that. It would have made sense. Sav basically, what did he have as a relationship after Anya? The arranged marriage didn't work out. And he had a tryst with Miss O.H., the media immersion teacher. And basically that could have been a whole lot terrible. So anyway, I think for sure that Sav would have stood up to him. But maybe Sav basically would be told to keep on doing the traditions or else you lose something. Basically, they're threatening him and all that. But then Sav would have blown his gasket at his parents. And maybe then the Bandaris would have changed their tune. And of course, Anya would not have had to go to Owen, would not have to go near Riley, and would not have had to suffer through a relationship with Dr. Chris. Well, and then she joined the army because, she liked it. But I didn't like how Anya wanted to join the army because, that makes her a puppet in a sense. She has to take orders. And she was taking orders from Holly J all these times. But anyway, that's all there is to it. So, anyway, let's go to number 2 in the what ifs. All right, so basically the storyline of our second what if is basically a relationship that basically had its ups and downs in seasons 1 to 6 of Next Gen, and that's Emma and Manny. Now, I'll try to paraphrase as much as I can, but Emma and Manny were best friends since kindergarten and all that. Emma was a little jealous of Manny when she went out for Spirit Squad, cheerleading and all that. Emma writes an article about how cheerleading could be dangerous and sexist, even though Paige says, we have boys on the squad too. But sexism is different than gender. Sex and gender are different in a way. Sexism is that cheerleaders are nothing more than sex objects and basically just trying to flirt with guys and all that. They're not well received. Well, basically, Emma meant that way. I think Emma was trying to look out for Manny, but unfortunately, Manny stays on the Spirit Squad. Emma admits her faults and all that. Of course, in season 2, Emma and Manny had a little bit of a falling out, mostly because when Emma found out that her mother was going to abort the unborn kid that she and Snake were having, she had a hissy fit because, she was almost aborted, and Manny tells her to stay out of it because, this isn't your problem. And Emma says, this is my problem, but out. So basically, Emma does all that. She ignores Manny's advice. But season 2, other than that, wasn't really that bad. Season 3 was the killer diller, if you will. Emma basically was upset with Manny trying to sexualize herself and all that. You got the look in the storyline that Manny wanted to wear it falling outside her hip waders or whatever, her pants. She was told that no visible underwear and all that, so Manny decides not to wear underwear. JT stops Manny from showing off her bare butt to people. Emma was upset. She wanted JT to be with Manny because JT loved Manny. Manny doesn't understand why Emma has to be so prudish. Basically, Emma and JT are mad at Manny. And then later on in season 3, Manny is trying to cheer Emma up after Emma lost Sean to Jay's gang. Basically, Emma decides that, to go to a rave and see Chris, someone she adored and all that. And then when he finds out that Chris probably has a girlfriend, Manny says, hey, you should make a move on Chris. Emma says, that's so evil. I can't do that. Emma's personality. So basically, Emma is left at the rave while Manny and Craig slip off to do other stuff. They, of course, have sex in Emma's bed, which ticks Emma off. Now, the reason why you see her in the basement is because with the new baby, Jack, basically Emma decides to kick herself to the basement. So basically she does, and guess what? Manny and Craig are there, and Emma's upset and all that. And then, of course, Emma and Manny have a blow-off. Basically, Emma was right. Manny was being a hypocrite. Basically, she tells Emma to go after Chris, even though he might have a girlfriend, whereas she steals Craig from Ashley and all that. But, of course, Craig does still see Ashley. So, Craig 2 times, both girls. Emma is upset by this and basically says that, I would not want to be around you. And Manny says, I don't want to be around a prudish, stuck-up figure like you. And I don't want to be with the school slut, Emma said. Now, Emma had a point to say that because she's worried about Manny and her problems and all that. She's trying to prevent Manny from issues. And, of course, Manny gets pregnant. Emma is not too sure about things. But Emma does protect Manny, in a sense, while still saying that she is anti-abortion. I think in a sense that maybe Spike may have talked to Emma about it. And Emma made the right move. Emma is still for abortion, but she's still for her best friend, in a sense. And then, of course, season 4, Manny and Emma didn't bump into each other a lot, mostly because of how Emma was upset over losing Chris. That's another what if coming up soon. But anyway, so Manny wasn't there for Emma in season 4 when Emma needed the most. And basically, they only interacted in secret. Like the episode Secret when, Emma ends up being part of Dracula and all that, thanks to 2 girls dropping out at the last second because of mono, thanks to Jay. And basically, Manny tells Emma that basically this is not the same Emma I know. Why are you with Jay and all that? Emma doesn't realize it. Well, how messed up Emma was. And Jay, Manny was trying to protect Emma from herself and all that. Kind of like what Emma tried to do with Manny in season 3. I think Manny might have realized something. So anyway, the problem here is that, they got back together as friends. And then season 5 pops up. Manny and Emma meet Peter. Emma's swooning over Peter. Peter doesn't want Emma. He wants Manny. And that might be because she's an actress and all that. So basically, Peter wines and dines Manny. Manny does a topless video, and then all of a sudden, this is trouble. So basically, you know, Emma, in a sense, is upset with Manny trying to steal Peter from her, but then realizes that Manny's the victim with the topless videos and decides to help Manny out by the fact that Manny got kicked out of her place. Emma decides to share her space with Manny. There's some conditions put in by Simpson, but Emma said no secrets between us. Sadly, though, Emma, as she was trying to get Peter back for what he did to Manny, swooned over Peter. And, there were a lot of issues with Emma's stuff in season 5. Now, of course, Manny didn't really break off with Emma as a best friend. Manny just basically told everyone about the fact that she's with Peter and all that, and she has an eating disorder and all that. Emma wants to throw Manny out for blabbing the secret, but then she gets a panic-induced heart attack or something like that. And she is fine. Like, she recovers and all that. In season 6, Emma was pissed off with Manny in the aftermath of the JT stabbing. The reason being is because, they threw a party without Spike and Snake's permission, and basically it got out of hand, and of course JT got stabbed in the aorta. If you watch the episode, like 2 episodes after JT gets stabbed, basically Emma is acting terrible towards Manny and all that. And Emma has a right to be mad at Manny. I mean, Manny moved back to her parents' place. Her parents insisted on it. Manny doesn't seem to have time for Emma as she's trying to explain her stuff. And basically, she's dating the student council president of Lakehurst, the school that had something to do with JT's death. And worst of all, Lakehurst is coming for a cheerleading competition, and Emma's upset. Emma, of course, is upset that Manny refuses to give her the time of day, and she does a protest. She gets in trouble, but she basically is told by Snake that you can be angry about how Lakehurst treated JT, but you can't hurt your best friend. But I mean, Emma was justified. I did that in a Degrassi Unpopular Opinions, why Emma was justified in getting mad at Manny when she did. But of course, at the end of season 6, basically, their friendship stays the test of time, in a sense. They don't hurt each other. So basically, the what if Manny and Emma basically did not stay friends throughout these problems? Well, there's a lot of people who would say, oh, well, there wouldn't be much difference. Well, here's the thing, though. Manny was the one who actually got Emma in Emma's head and basically told Emma to snap out of her funk after the season 4 Rick situation. She's the one who basically helped Emma get over her eating troubles and all that by being honest with Peter and with Emma's parents. And basically, Manny made Emma realize that Emma has the right to get mad, but she gets mad at the worst possible time at her. Like, Emma needed Manny and all that, because those plot lines without Manny, I think Emma would have fallen really downhill fast. Maybe Manny basically becomes a teen mom and all that without Emma's intervention. Who knows? But in my mind, I think Emma and Manny were meant to be friends. I mean, Emma didn't really have many friends other than Manny. She had JT for a little bit, she had Toby for a little bit, and she had Liberty for a little bit, but that didn't make sense. Anyway, so that's number 2. And finally, what if number 3 has to do with the guy I've been doing videos on for a while. At first trying to deconstruct him as a bad guy, but after learning all these things, he's a bad guy in a sense, but he's not a total bad guy. So here's how it works. There will be plenty of what ifs to do with the Rick Murray situation, but this what if is basically a straight up what if. So in Time Stand Still Part 1, Rick basically is hatred that Jimmy is now on the Wacky Brain team, except who's replacing Heather Sinclair, who had a mono. So basically, Emma and Toby tell Rick to talk to Simpson. He won't. But then he's got a plan because he's got Raditch. Now, earlier in season 4, basically, we find out that Raditch is protecting Rick at all costs. So Rick decides to go to Raditch and basically talks to him and says that, Jimmy isn't being doesn't want to be my friend. He's bothering me, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't say the magic words about bullying, and he doesn't say anything big. And then Raditch comes to the conclusion that basically Rick wants Raditch to force him to make friends with Jimmy. Unfortunately, Raditch blows off and basically says, "Come to me when something serious happens." So basically, yeah, Raditch now doesn't want anything to do with Rick and all that. And of course, this comes to a head in the scene when Spike and Snake are comforting Emma in the media room after Rick got shot. Raditch comes into the room. He wants Snake to find warning signs, go through the emails. The police wants that. Snake kind of agrees, but he also blasts Raditch for the fact that you left Rick high and dry, and the fact that he came by a couple of times to talk to you. Do you remember every word he said? I bet you don't. This could have been prevented if you had. And then Spike stops the argument. Well, safe to say that, that's what we saw. What we didn't see in one of the deleted scenes in Time Stand Still Part 2 is that Raditch basically was going to blow up at Spinner because Spinner made chicken noises at Rick. Raditch then comes up to Rick and says that he feels bad for how the situation happened and basically tells Rick to just go home. We'll figure something out. Rick refuses. He wants to go to his locker. And then Raditch says fine. And then Snake talks to Raditch. And Raditch basically says, this is not preschool and make friends not part of the curriculum. So you got a problem there. Of course, we would soon find out that Raditch basically was not himself. Basically from season 1 to 4, he was steadily growing more and more jaded and more punitive in fact. This is the same guy who basically suspended Emma, I think, because he just wanted Emma to bow down to him. And he probably had a hatred of Emma because, she stood up to him and she told the school about his policies. So basically now he figures that the school will be run by the inmates, if you will. The asylum will be run by the inmates. But what you got to know is that basically Raditch screwed up the aftermath as well. Yes, he left Rick to his own devices, but the aftermath also added to his problems, especially with the fact that he didn't want Dracula on. I get the point. He wants it to be postponed due to the fact that with the blood and gory thing, and it's a week after Rick died. That Liberty and JT said that basically it's a little fun fact, and they need the school to move on. And then Raditch says, why don't you put on a musical? Liberty and JT basically do the Raditch's song in front of him. And we learned how bad Raditch was because when Alex says the line, I'm all for rebellion, but I'm not about getting expelled. Basically, we learned that Raditch probably didn't want the students to interfere with his plans and all that. So basically, he was causing trouble. He puts Liberty and JT in Monday detention, and then a few episodes later, he's out the door. He got canned. Well, he got reassigned. And all that. My point is that Raditch basically was gone, and he could have done so much better and all that. So then comes the what if. So what if Raditch actually listened to Rick in all this stuff? Simply put, Raditch would have listened to Rick and would basically put the end to anything that would do to him. Basically, he would protect Rick 24/7 and all that, if you will. Now, there's a couple of problems with this solution. Number one is that he might not have done it right away. Raditch probably would have said, I'm busy right now. If anything else major happens to me, you let me know so that, I can investigate. He might not have investigated at the time, but he probably would have just pinpointed things and all that. He could have just told Rick, I'm busy. Come back to me some other time. But then again, that's probably what he meant when he said, come to me when something serious happens. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that Raditch could have stopped the bullying from happening. He could have just basically got the school on the case. But here's a problem. There's a big caveat to it. No, there's a drawback to it. Now, as we all know that in Mercy Street, when Rick came back, Rick talked to the people at the dot and says that, oh, you can't touch me at school, Raditch. Well, like that. And then Jay and Emma and all of them said, yeah, but we're not at school. And all that. You know, that's the thing too. You know, I know the students were mad at Rick and mad at Raditch too for letting him back in. But the fact is, that might have been actually a bit of a problem if Raditch basically went on the PA and shamed the school and all that. Those people like Spinner Jay and Alex who were still willing to beat up on Rick and all that basically would have just tore him limb from limb outside of school. But it raises a question, is that, you know, how come they didn't tear Rick limb to limb, limb from limb, outside of school in the time frame between the end of Mercy Street and Time Stands Still? It doesn't make sense. But I think basically that they figured that someone like Emma was going to show up and all that. Of course, as we all know, that basically they tried to beat Rick into submission, but Emma stopped it. So anyway, yeah, it's the giant what if is with Raditch is that, you know, Raditch would have probably stopped it, and you know, he still would have been in a credible principal, but there'll still be like hatred towards him for letting Rick in to the school. Now, the fact of the matter is, would that have extended Raditch's time frame on Next Gen? Possibly, possibly not. I think possibly in a sense. But if you don't know the story, Dan Woods, the actor who played Raditch, actually wanted to leave the show. I mean, he was in California. They had to fly him to Toronto to use him in scenes, and basically he wasn't used that often. So basically, it was just a production value thing. And I think Dan Woods probably figured that, you know, I should leave the show now. But the fact of the matter is, Raditch could have left on better terms. Okay, yes, he got a farewell party and he got reassigned when he could have got fired. Because this was 2004. This is not 2020, when basically he would have been fired and stripped of his teaching license. But who knows? Raditch probably, at the end, didn't like his reassignment and probably thought about how bad he did in the Rick situation and basically punished himself, in a sense, by going to California. But anyway, thanks for watching this maiden episode, and there'll be more to come in the later days. Bye.